Welcome to the Heart of Real Estate podcast with Mike McFarland and Steven Salinas with the Mortgage Mike Group. On the podcast, Mike and Steven discuss with top producing real estate agents what makes them successful, unique, and purpose-filled. Each episode holds a key to unlocking a door to financial freedom.
Hey folks, it's Mike McFarland here, and welcome to another edition of the Heart of Real Estate monthly market update. I'm Mike McFarland. I got a very special guest today with us, and that's James Manuel with the Goosehead Insurance Agency. Did I get that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good.
I'm a Goosehead.
You're a Goosehead, yeah. So, hey, listen, Goosehead is one of our big partners with my group, right? Mm-hmm. James, you do a lot of great work for us. Scott, Chase, you guys are, you're our number one insurance resource when it comes to helping us take care of our clients. Mm-hmm. I brought you on today, though, my friend. Well, two things. One, just tell us a little bit about yourself. How about that? And then we'll talk to you about why I brought you on today.
Absolutely. So, yes, I'm James Manuel with Goosehead Insurance. I work with the third largest agency in the country with Goosehead Insurance, the Matthew Colby agency. I work very closely with Mike and his team. Our whole office has helped them out for a very long time. Yeah. Goosehead Insurance, we're the largest broker in the state of Texas. So I have about 40 different insurance companies I represent. I'm not a captive agent. I'm an independent broker.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and we love that because one, it allows whenever I need flexibility, and sometimes our debt to income ratios might be really up there, and I need a little breathing room to solve a problem so we can get a family into a home. James, the fact that you can broker to multiple insurance outlets allows you to find a policy that fits the mortgage, right? We usually want to have a policy that fits the client. Yeah. But sometimes we need a policy that fits the mortgage so that we can close the client, and we can always modify the policy after the closing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, that's what I am. That's what I do for Mike. Mike, once again, thank you. I didn't tell you, but thank you for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. You guys are awesome. Yeah. We love you guys. So, hey, James, the reason I brought you on, one of the things that I've noticed over probably the last 12 months is when it really started to just be a thing that was like, wow, something's changing in the insurance world. Because it used to be, or I felt like, and maybe I was wrong on this assumption, but I felt like for the last several years, insurance was relatively predictable for me as a lender to know that, okay, the house is $250, insurance is probably going to run about this. It's $350, it's going to run about this. $450, it might run at this range, but we were pretty good at using a range of numbers to estimate based on our sales price. And it was close enough that we're pretty accurate, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things I've noticed in the last 12 months is that's not the case.
Yes.
Right. So insurance is like, in fact, I remember we were talking to you guys about it, and you guys are like, you need to start quoting higher.
Yes.
Right. Because the numbers you're using are not relevant anymore. And we're like, great, help us understand what's happening in the market today that's causing insurance costs to go up. So, James, I'm going to let you just kind of take it from here and just explaining what are the things that are causing the rising insurance cost, right? And what are some of the things we can do to help minimize that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, the insurance market is crazy right now. As you were saying, and as we've talked about, rates are just climbing, and they're going up very quickly. I don't expect them to come back down in the next couple of years. That stuff's a little unpredictable, but they're coming up very high. Texas is actually on track to be the most expensive insurance for home insurance, right? Most expensive state in the nation. Okay. So that we're on track. We're number 2. We're right behind Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, like not even Florida. Oklahoma.
No, Florida's up there, but it's changed over the last couple of years. So Texas, it's getting very, very expensive. We've seen a lot of different companies in the state of Texas back out of certain zip codes, certain counties, right? And we've seen a lot of companies just back out completely, go into receivership, things like that. So there's been a lot of changes, especially here in the Houston area, right? With the surrounding counties, we've just seen so many different changes with insurance.
Is that because we're so close to the Gulf Coast? Is that part of it?
That is part of it. I'll break down the main reasons why prices are going up. So the first thing, when it comes to why the prices are going up, a lot of it, the majority of it goes to the winter storm that happened in 2021. Okay. So just some numbers for you. Whenever that happened, about $10.3 billion in claims were paid out from insurance companies, from home insurance companies.
Wow.
In the state of
Texas. That would be statewide, 10.3 billion.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Over 500,000 claims were filed. It was something that insurance companies weren't predicting or weren't ready for. Okay. Every year, insurance companies, they predict for the summertime, especially here in the coast, mainly for the Houston area. They expect hurricanes and hurricanes and different tropical cyclones to happen, right? That's just something that can always happen here, but nobody was predicting the winter storm. That came out of nowhere. We weren't expecting that at all. So that's been the main reason why prices are going up.
Wow.
Another reason is storms, different coastal storms that have happened in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. There's just been a lot of different storms that have hit all along the coast, not just Texas, but Louisiana, Florida. It's been very, very, very crazy, I guess is what to say. A lot of natural disasters, an abundance of natural disasters. So another thing I wanted to touch on, homes are costing more to rebuild. Every single day, and I talk about this every time I'm talking with clients, whenever we run the dwelling coverage for a home, or how much the home should be covered for, we run what we call an RCE. That stands for Replacement Cost Estimator.
Okay.
So what that does, that factors in the rebuild cost of homes, just the rebuild cost, and it's the price of labor and materials at today's prices. So those, if I would have quoted out, or if I would have ran an RCE on a home back a year ago, it probably would have came down a lot less than it would today.
Yeah.
So the price of labor and materials is just going up. Houses are costing a lot more to rebuild. And then the last thing would be inflation. Everything's up right now.
Right.
And a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people on the phone because, of course, we do, people get the renewals, and the renewals are going up from last year. And they're saying, hey, why did my home insurance go up? And I always have to tell them, like, look, it has nothing to do with you. You may have not filed a claim ever in your life. There's just a lot of things happening in the economy and just over the last couple of years. But inflation does affect home insurance rates. A lot of people aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's affected groceries, different other things in the market, right? But it's everything's going up, and insurance, unfortunately, it does fall into that.
Right.
But I'm going to be able to tell you good things to look out for as a realtor,
right?
Things to tell your clients, and then as a home buyer, things to look out for on the insurance side of things.
Well, so every year our insurance carriers can, they just adjust the cost of the policy. So 1 year they may have made an assumption on policy cost based on certain parameters. You have a series of natural disasters, or we have inflationary pressures, or we get COVID and we get a shortage of supplies, and and building cost to build goes up. And the next thing you know, they're reevaluating what revenue they're going to generate based on claims paid. Right. And then so there's an adjustment to your insurance policy just because you didn't do anything other than the fact that we're living in today's world.
Yeah. Like I said, another thing I want to touch on, home insurance, it's like I said, it's going up. Auto insurance is going up as well in the state of Texas. So it's just things are just going up.
Okay.
So
do you think it's primarily just inflationary when you start looking at auto insurance, or is that
No, a lot of it actually dates back to COVID in the claims process.
Okay.
So I was talking with Chase, my office head, about this, and the claims process for vehicles right now, it's taking a lot longer. Supply chain issues as well.
Okay.
It's still affecting us from COVID. So different parts for vehicles.
Right. So everything costs more.
Yes, everything's going up. There's supply chain issues. It's just, there's a lot of things that really go into it. But we're dealing with that on that side as well.
Yeah.
But the main thing when it comes to home insurance costs, why they've gone up, is number one reason, the winter storm. Just because a lot of these insurance companies for the past 5 years, they just haven't been as profitable as they used to. So they're having to readjust so they can, stay in this certain market.
For sure.
So
that explains why some of them just are going into receivership, and
exactly,
some of them stop writing policies in certain zip codes because they're like, hey, we took enough losses here, or they're just going to charge more, right? They just end up just like, let's just jack up the premiums, and if somebody's going to pay it, great, and if not, they're not worried about writing a policy. So cool.
So that's the insurance market overview and the why. But some things I wanted to get into. This is going to be really important for clients, people who are in the process of purchasing a home, whether it's your first time, your second time, and then also realtors. things to look out for when you're showing houses to clients. So I'm going to go over just some different rating factors. The first one I want to talk about was age of the home.
Okay.
So age of the home is a big rating factor. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but older homes are actually more expensive to insure as opposed to a new construction home. So
why is that?
So I'm glad you asked. I was doing some research on this, and a lot of it has to do with homes that have been around for decades. More general wear and tear is more likely to happen. So that's one reason. And then also due to the replacement cost of certain types of materials.
Okay.
So newer construction homes, there's less likely things to happen. I'm going to talk more about different rating factors, but when you look at a new construction home, it has new plumbing, new roof, new HVAC, good electrical wiring throughout I would say the last 40, 50 years, maybe 60 years, a lot of homes, there's been certain things that used to be normal when it came to on homes, like galvanized plumbing.
Right.
And then different types of plumbing as well, like Quest. That was a brand name. I believe the correct term for what type of material it was polybutylene.
Okay.
That type of plumbing.
Right.
There's been lots of issues with that over the years.
Okay.
And then aluminum wiring.
Got it.
So just different things.
You have all these hangover effects of old construction style that begins to impact claims likelihood.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Age of the home. That's a big thing. So for people that are in the market for purchasing a house, the newer your home is, or realtors, if you're showing houses, the newer the home is, more likely the insurance is going to be a little bit cheaper there.
Got it.
Another thing is construction type. A lot of people don't really look into this too much because it's just something you don't think about. This isn't a huge rating factor as opposed to other ones, but whenever it comes to different types of siding, so we always call it masonry veneer. Okay. So, like brick homes or hardy plank. A lot of times hardy plank will fall under masonry veneer. It's a little bit, it's a better rating factor. It helps out the premium as opposed to a stucco or wood siding house. Right. How many stories? And then also another thing is foundation types. Foundation types, it's a rating factor, but also an eligibility factor. There's some insurance companies that will not accept certain types of foundation. So
tell us what
absolutely,
kind of foundation?
Absolutely. So the most favorable foundation is a concrete slab. There's an insurance company that we write with. They only accept concrete slabs. They won't accept pier and beam or open foundation.
Wow.
Now don't let that make or break your dream house, right?
Especially because we're in the Heights area, right? Which a lot of homes are on pier and beam around here.
Yeah.
So
precisely. So there's always ways around that. I'll talk about that. Obviously, though, concrete slab is the most favorable. Like you mentioned, a lot of these bungalow style houses here in the Heights, they tend to have a pier and beam. Most of the time, pier and beam is acceptable. That's not a big no-no, but what they want to see is like lattice around the home or a closed foundation. Whenever there's an open foundation, some insurance companies don't like that.
Wow, interesting.
So that's one thing. But also houses on stilts. There's many different types of foundations that most are acceptable, but when it comes down to it, the concrete slab is the most favorable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is most of the homes in Houston, thankfully.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So but when I'm getting into the different rating factors, things to look out for, I would say the biggest one is the age of the roof. Okay. A lot of people aren't aware of that. Like I mentioned, new construction homes, they tend to be more favorable by insurance companies. The premiums are cheaper. A lot of that has to do is because if you do what we call a 4-point inspection, like I mentioned earlier, roof, HVAC, wiring, and the plumbing, all that stuff is new. So if you're buying an older house, the roof is a big rating factor. Newer roofs, a lot more favorable. When it comes to the typical life of a roof, a lot of times I hear a big roofer selling point, and I understand where they're coming from, right? A roof, a lot of times they'll say a roof lasts 30 years, which is could be true, right? I'm not a roofing expert, but I would hope it lasts around 30 years. Yeah. But
as a homeowner, I would like for it to last 30 years.
Right. But from an insurance standpoint, a lot of these insurance companies, they really want to see 15 years or less. Okay. So whenever it gets over that 15-year mark, some insurance companies won't cover the home, or they'll cover it at what we call actual cash value as opposed to replacement cost.
Okay.
So replacement cost, and I'll dive into that. Replacement cost is if something was to happen to your home, let's say worst case scenario, this hurricane was to come through and blew your whole entire roof off, right? Worst case scenario. If you have replacement cost coverage, the only thing you pay is your deductible.
Yeah.
Insurance covers the rest.
Right.
Actual cash value, you're still covered. However, you're going to pay your deductible. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take into account depreciation of the roof. So life of the roof as well. So you won't have enough money to budget or to go towards a fully new roof. You'll have to pay that out of pocket. So
got it.
That's one of the biggest rating factors is a roof.
Got it.
Also the shape of the roof, hip roofs. So when it comes to the design of a roof, there's hip roofs that's more of like a pyramid style.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's what we call gable. Gable tends to be on more older homes, like 70s, 80s builds.
Okay.
But hip roofs are a little bit more favorable. I've noticed the gable roofs make the dwelling coverage a little bit more expensive.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then also flat roofs. Some insurance companies don't accept flat roofs.
That makes sense.
Most of the newer homes and most homes that have been remodeled and updated, most people are, or most construction, these contractors are putting hip roofs on the newer homes. If they have gable, it's not an issue, but hip roof is a little bit more favorable on the dwelling cost.
Got it.
So another big point I wanted to talk about that I don't think a lot of people are aware of is the type of roof you have. And when I say that, I mean what type of materials are on it. So there's two types of shingles. There's the architectural shingles, and then there's what we call 3-tab or composite. The architectural tends to be more favorable. So for everybody who's listening to this, I'm not sure if you're watching it, I would have to show you a picture, but it's just Google a picture of architectural.
Okay.
And it's more homes. If you've had a home that's been recently renovated or updated and you have a new roof, it's most likely architectural. 3-tab is just more of a flat. They don't overlap on each other. It's just flat. And those tend to not be as favorable to insurance companies. Now, they'll still write the business. They'll still accept it. But I've seen when people have architectural roofs, there's certain carriers, certain companies we represent that the premium goes down by $200, $300.
Wow.
Just by off of that architectural shingle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, and there's certain roof elements or certain types of roofs like metal roofs. The thing about metal roofs is a lot of them, if you buy like a 90s build home, right, and it has a metal roof, it's most likely still the original roof, which in that case, it's covered at actual cash value. Now it's less likely to get blown away from a hurricane, right, as opposed to shingles flapping up. But it's one thing to be aware of. And there's certain insurance companies that won't accept metal roofs or just certain types of materials.
Got it.
So in Texas, majority of the time, especially here in the Houston area, majority of the homes that I see and that I write insurance for all have composite or just the architectural shingles because they're mainly built for tough storms,
right?
You know, like hurricanes, tropical cyclones, strong winds, things like that. So, but I know there are some homes that tend to have Spanish tile or certain types of other materials.
Right.
So,
okay, cool.
Yeah. Another thing is location. People are never aware of this, and it's so this is probably the one that always blows my mind away is the location. If you could take a 2,500 square foot regular single family home, and if you have it in the Conroe area, North Houston, it's going to be significantly less if you were to place it in Galveston.
Right.
Now, that obviously, me saying that, it makes sense, right? You think, well, yeah, it's in Galveston, but whenever you tend to go around, I always like to think about looking at the 610 loop.
Yeah.
North Houston is more favorable, and the west side is a little bit more favorable. But once you get down to the south side, closer to, I would say, like Pearland, Sugarland, Leak City, Clear Lake, all those areas down there.
Yeah.
Getting into like Brazoria and Galveston County.
Right.
And then when you want to go a little bit more east, like Baytown, LaPorte, Chambers County area over there, it tends to be a lot more expensive over there as well. So when you're looking at the map of Houston, Northwest, Jersey Village, all the north side and the west side, it tends to be more favorable on insurance.
Yeah.
And then the south to the east side tends to be more expensive. And the reason why is because you're closer to the coast.
Right.
There's just more coastal exposure there. So a lot of people aren't aware that when you get into certain areas, you may have to have a Texas Windstorm Insurance Association. You may have to have 2 insurance policies. So one on the hazard, one for your home that covers for everything like fire damage, lightning, smoke, all those different types of things that can happen. And then the other one you'll have covered just for windstorm, hail, and hurricane damage.
Got it. So one, when you say we need a separate windstorm and hail policy, it's because that's where that kicks into play.
Yeah, it's because some insurance companies they don't want to accept the risk for wind and hail down there.
Got it.
That's why. So it's less likely that a fire is going to happen as opposed to a hurricane in Galveston, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Or Clear Lake or wherever, right?
Yes.
Baytown area. So I feel like there's a line of demarcation. There's all like across some southern portion of the city that once you cross that, insurance cost is going to be higher.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Precisely. And then another thing while we're on the subject of it is swimming pools. That's a rating factor. Your credit. We always run an insurance score.
Oh, hang on. Let's back up on that because people I've had this question. Well, insurance company is going to run a credit report on me, and that's going to be an inquiry. And that you get a lot of, I get some concerns around that.
Yeah.
So is that a hard credit pull like we would pull? Okay.
No, it's just a soft credit pull. What it does is all we do is we have the client's name, date of birth, and the address they lived at for the past 2 years.
So not even a social security.
Not even a social
security.
Oh my
gosh. No. Wow.
The only time I've had to use a social is when I've had certain people that were coming from another country and they were new here. That situation, right? Very, very rare. We have to use a social. Very, very rare. And
so I know you're off of that information, you're able to do a soft pull on a credit report. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's certain carriers, your insurance score, it can really be a big rating factor.
So you have an insurance score.
Yes.
Right. Okay. You got a FICO score and you have an insurance score, but nobody knows what their insurance score is, right?
Yeah, no, it's not until we get into the carriers and start quoting. But the last thing that I want to touch on with these rating factors, one of the biggest things that you can help on insurance is discounts to help your premium get lower. The biggest discount you can do. And a lot of people, I see this all the time. They tend to have certain brand loyalty towards companies like USA or State Farm, which is understandable, right? But the biggest rating factor or the biggest thing that can help drive down the cost of your home insurance is by bundling your home and auto insurance.
Got it.
Bundling your home and auto insurance. I've seen people save people tons of money.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people who are out there who are underinsured, carrying state minimum limits on their auto insurance, and they're overpaying as well.
Wow.
So I have a lot of people that I'll switch over with better liability limits, better coverage, and getting them a better price as well. But some of it's because, maybe they haven't shopped in five or 10 years, they've been with just the same company. And
I think so that leads me to something that's really important for me in regards to working with you guys. So much you work a lot like we do in that you take a clients through a consultation where you're showing them, right, the different policies and the cost associated with them. And like, you're taking the time, like we take the time to explain the mortgage and putting them on a clear mortgage plan and like exposing all the things that are going to be in the midst of this. When we hand a client over to you guys for insurance, you do a very similar process with them as well. Share with us what your process looks like, because I think it's really important, right?
Yeah.
You can go Geico. You're not going to get this. You can go online and get the cheapest insurance out there. You have no idea what you're buying.
Yeah.
Right. But boy, it's the cheapest policy.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you asked that question. So I always get people's first call is I get all their information and we always create a really good referable experience. Right. So, congratulating them on the home, asking them how the process has been going. Cause majority of the time we're working with lenders, realtors, we're part of that process. So, I get the information and then when I go through, I run through all my different carriers. And then what I do is I present the quotes to them, but I don't just email quotes over or send quotes over because there's a lot of different things that need to be discussed. Right. There's a lot of things that need to be discussed.
Right.
The auto insurance, it's pretty straightforward. There's not too many coverages there, but I always explain the different things on there. But when it comes to home insurance, there's a lot of different things. There's your dwelling coverage. I talk about that. I talk about the personal property. We can make adjustments to that. And I always give my best recommendation. When I say best recommendation, a lot of people aren't aware of not all insurance is the same. People go online and they'll get a quote, or they'll go anywhere and get a quote and they'll see a really good price, but they don't realize anything about their coverage.
Right.
So I always give my best recommendation, a full package of water coverages. I'm going to touch on that shortly. But water coverages are very, very important. Having certain endorsements, having the standard deductibles for your area is very important.
Yeah.
And then making sure everything's matched up as well, like as far as your dwelling coverage and your personal property.
Got it.
But there's a lot of different things that I really get into detail about. I walk the client through it. And if we need to make adjustments on it, we can, because there's a lot of clients that may be very coverage focused. They want the best coverage. But right now, what we're seeing a lot of, especially in Texas, is people are very price focused.
Right. It's like, maybe I don't need that much coverage.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of first time home buyers. It's a newly married couple. They've been in their careers for a couple of years, not too long, maybe a couple of years. They don't even have kids yet, and they're just scraping together just to get into that first home. And if we need to cut coverages, we can. I'm going to give them my best recommendation, but if there's certain things we need to adjust, I can always make that happen.
Right.
I'd be more than happy to do that. I like doing that.
Yeah.
I want to make it work for you at the end of the day. Right.
Right.
So, and people always ask me, which coverage, if you had to take off a coverage, which one would you do? And I always give them my recommendation on that.
Right.
What I think is more important, what fits their specific needs.
Right.
So, one last thing, and I'll touch more on that. I wanted to touch on just eligibility factors really quickly. There's certain eligibility factors in home insurance. A lot of people, when they're moving into a home, they don't realize some insurance companies won't accept these things. They'll just completely cancel them out. So, or they'll make you sign certain documents. For example, certain animals. Now I'm a big dog lover. I love dogs, but certain insurance companies, when it comes to the aggressive dog breeds, pit bulls, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, some companies won't accept those. Now, most companies will accept it, but they'll make you sign an animal liability exclusion form.
Okay.
So basically, if anything happens with the dog,
that's yours.
That's yours, right? If you get sued, something like that, that's on your hands. But I love dogs. Some people, they tend to get pretty scared when I ask, so what kind of animals do you have? And that feels that they don't want to tell me,
right?
Or they kind of beat around the bush. I'm like, look, I'll find a good option for you. I can do that,
right?
Yeah. So another thing is trampolines. Trampolines, some insurance companies won't accept them, but if they do accept them, they want you to have a net around it. So if you have kiddos, just you have a trampoline,
net it.
Yeah, net it. You can. Some insurance companies won't accept it, but consult with your insurance agent about that.
Yeah.
And then lastly is swimming pools. Certain companies, when it comes to diving boards and slides, they may not accept those or make you sign certain documents for that as well. So, and then I touched on this a little bit. I almost forgot, but I was talking about the 4-point inspection, different types of plumbing, and I already touched on it, but some insurance companies won't accept galvanized or older plumbing like the polybutylene,
right?
Or when it comes to certain electrical panels like aluminum wiring. And then certain roofs, like flat roofs, certain shapes of roofs they won't accept. So whenever you're going into a home, it may be a good idea to always talk to your realtor about negotiating for new roof or updated plumbing or certain things you can negotiate on with the seller to make your home a little bit more favorable on insurance, but also for yourself as well.
Yeah.
So, but moving on, I wanted to touch on important things just for home buyers to know. So, like we were mentioning before I went off about eligibility, I talked about not all insurance is the same. And I mentioned a lot of people get quotes and they see a cheaper price, but they don't realize that that particular quote they have doesn't have a lot of endorsements. So I mentioned full water package endorsements. Whenever you're buying a home insurance policy, I always recommend lots of water coverage because water is the most common claim when it comes to insurance.
It's the worst on your
It's the worst. Yes. And a lot of people just aren't aware of that. Certain water coverages, I always recommend 5.
Okay.
The first one is what we call sudden and accidental. That comes on every home insurance policy in Texas. Think about if there's a busted pipe.
Yeah.
If you come home and there's a busted pipe, you're covered for that. Every home insurance policy covers that. But if there's a slow leak behind the wall or any type of leak that goes on for more than 14 days, without what we call seepage coverage, you're not covered for that.
Got it.
So I always recommend seepage. I always recommend foundation.
You're not going to know either.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And people they underestimate how much damage water can do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Scott was telling me about a client he had who had $200,000 of water damage, or 190,000, almost 200,000.
Call it 200. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always recommend the seepage coverage. I always recommend foundation coverage. If you have a concrete slab and there's a busted pipe underneath the foundation.
Yeah.
If there's a busted pipe there, foundation coverage, you want to have that on there. So that can be very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Especially on older homes that are, that may have galvanized pipe that's, will slowly erode or deteriorate. So
no, for sure. And then I always recommend another one called water backup coverage.
Okay.
Water backup coverage, it covers you in a situation if water backs up into your home from a clogged drain, sewer, damages your home, your property, things like that.
Got it.
And then also this one, most people, they if they have to cut one, they usually cut this one, but I still recommend it. It's not really as expensive, but it's what we call service line coverage. Service line coverage, it protects against unexpected expenses related to service lines that run through your property. So think about if there's a city water line running through your property and it was to get damaged, the city wouldn't pay for it actually.
Yeah.
Since it's on your property, it falls on your behalf. So you'd have coverage for that, right?
Right.
That's typically not a very expensive one. I actually did some research. The average cost on that is about $6,000. But if there's, like electrical power lines, things like service lines like that,
right,
that ran by the city. If it's on your property, if you don't have service line coverage, you will have to pay that out of pocket.
Really?
So I always recommend a full water coverage package. And then as well as having the standard deductibles. And those are the main drivers of the insurance, as well as the dwelling coverage. The dwelling coverage, that is just the cost to rebuild your home though. I don't really adjust. That's never really something I really adjust. And a lot of people will get multiple quotes and they'll see different dwelling coverages and they have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
But the dwelling coverage, I always run like I mentioned earlier, a replacement cost estimator calculates it in real time of what the home is priced at to rebuild.
Yeah.
So
great.
So yeah. But yeah, those endorsements, it's always important for home buyers to know, have endorsements. And if the price looks a little expensive with all those endorsements, you can always have some of those cut off or make certain adjustments there.
Right. So, right. Well, and I think that leads to, well, one, have you covered all your points? I don't want to close you out.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep going then.
Just two more. The one thing a lot of people aren't aware of, flood insurance isn't covered on the home insurance. If you live in Texas, you have to have flood insurance on a separate separate policy. A lot of people think flood, or first time home buyers or people in general may think that flood insurance falls into home insurance. It does not. And then also I mentioned this, just make sure you have the standard deductibles for your area. So those are the important things to know when it's looking for an insurance quote. For your first or for your home purchase.
Right.
So,
well, and I think that just goes to the fact that we just can't really let our clients just inadvertently look for insurance.
Yes.
A lot, I think the way my lead in is always, hey, do you have an insurance provider that you know, like, and trust? It's a pretty easy answer. If they say, yeah, okay, cool. Then use that guy. Well, I don't know. I'm looking around, I'm shopping. Hey, let me make a connection with our guys, because the one thing that I do know is that, just like in mortgages, somebody can put a few weeks worksheet in front of a buyer client and they have no idea what that means. Or they can take it through a consultation like we do to explain to them the parts in regards to what they're buying to get them the best possible mortgage that we can. The same thing applies in insurance.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
And so you guys do a great job of consulting the client, understanding the particulars of their situation, presenting a policy and consulting them through what the costs are going to be in the components. So at least they're educated. Now they may not remember 12 months from now or 6 months from now, but at least they know they've got a good policy.
Yes, precisely.
Right? And they know what they bought and it's been covered. And I think that's a value that's grossly underestimated in the insurance world today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with you 100%. I see people all the time. They'll go get a quote and the price looks really good, but it's not a good policy. The coverages just don't really line up. They have higher deductibles. So many different technicalities to go into it. So if you get a home insurance quote and if you go online and request one and they just email it over to you, that may not be a good thing. You may need to do some digging on that and do some research. Talk with an expert.
Right.
I remember one thing that's been stuck in my mind, Mike, off subject, but that it really stuck with me when I spoke with you and Steven last week. You said this is the year of the expert.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that. I think that's really important. So you want to make sure you're talking with experts,
right on,
professionals. So,
and you kind of said that better than I could.
Yeah.
So, man, that's awesome. Yeah. So this is the year of the expert. The expert agent, the expert loan officer, the expert insurance agent. Right. It is the year of the expert, and all of us working in concert to take the best possible care we can of the client that's been put in front of us.
Yeah. Precisely.
Cool. So James, thanks for being on the show, man.
Absolutely.
It's been really good.
Yeah. My pleasure. I'm I couldn't be more thankful. It's a great opportunity. I love this. This is my first time being on a podcast.
Great,
so
man.
I enjoyed it.
You did really well, and you're an awesome business partner.
Thank you, Mike.
If anybody out there needs a great insurance company, Goosehead, James, those guys rock. We 100% endorse them for the work that they do and what they do for our clients. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Heart of Real Estate Monthly Market Update.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Heart of Real Estate podcast. If you found this episode thought-provoking and helpful, do us a favor and share it with 2 of your friends. Also, feel free to leave any comments or reviews. And if you want to learn more about the Mortgage Mike Group, reach out. We'd love to connect.